Hello, this is a side show. I'm Theodore Parker, and it's Friday, September 17th, 2021. The week is gone by. Hope you've taken some time for yourself. Put in a little Tai Chi, a little watching your diet, getting a couple of balanced meals in. Protein, starch, and vegetables, and basically taking care of yourself. And don't forget about your mental health. I was thinking about that this week. Some people, by definition, are automatically supplied a mental health doctor where you can go and talk about what's on your mind, things you might not want to share with your family or with your buddies or girlfriends per se, and can get some suggestions or a direction in which to go with that. It's like the difference between taking a bath and taking a shower. So guard your mental health, especially right about now. We got COVID going on, so we want to keep mindful of our mask. And where necessary, social distancing, sanitizing our hands, and overall keeping ourselves safe and careful, being careful and safe. This week, it's been a lot in the news. I think tomorrow, there's anticipating a parade, march, some kind of rally at the Capitol in regards to right-wing people, similar to Proud Boys. So the Capitol Hill has put fences up around it and is otherwise preparing for what might go wrong, as we have seen in the past. Based on investigations and follow-ups by the Committee for 1/6, and more information is still moving forward, coming out about the events and the people involved in that situation on 1/6. Taking some time to look at some of the Netflix stuff, particularly 9/11 and war on terrorism. It's 5 episodes. So if you get a chance, you might want to look at it. It brings out some points that I was not aware of, how it was handled, whose administration was in place at the time that these events went on, some legal positions that I otherwise would not have run across. So if you have the time for it, you can do something like that. Like I said, a weekend ago, they had a day-long memorial service for that, marking the 20 years memorial for 9/11. I've been running this series, at least 2 episodes, on social justice. And I know this month they've had an anniversary for the March on Washington, when over 250,000 people converged on the Capitol. Martin Luther King's era, and giving his I Have a Dream speech. There's been some other Hollywood versions related to Black people in history. The combination of Muhammad Ali and Malcolm X, blood brothers. They did meet, I am aware of that, did have some conversation, especially with Muhammad Ali changing his name from Cassius Clay to Muhammad Ali, along with his choices as far as serving in the military, and the journey to Mecca, other high points which are probably common knowledge for those people who are of that generation, and is available for those people that are interested, if you want to find out. But today, an article came across my vision. And since we just came out of the Olympics in Japan, and almost a household name, Simone Biles, took some time for her mental health during that event. And although she did receive gold for performance, the other things that she opted out of were handled by a USA team. So this article is related to the sad but true events that took place in which she, as well as many other young girls, suffered at the hands of Larry Nassar. And it's related to the FBI's handling of that. As early as 2015, complaints were lodged against Larry Nassar and how he was conducting himself as a team physician for the U.S. Olympic Committee team, USA. And this article kind of puts out some other facts about it. I'm going to give it to you verbatim, as they say. Read it to you almost, but so we don't confuse the facts and you can kind of get the quote-unquote flavor of it. This was this week. Matter of fact, it's dated today. So it's coming from United Kingdom newspaper, and it's entitled, "The FBI's handling of Larry Nassar's sex abuse is awful, but sadly unsurprising." So between the first complaints to the FBI and the time the agency took action, Nassar sexually abused some 70 women and girls. One of the agents who was supposed to investigate was angling for a job at USA Gymnastics. So the article begins. When she was in Tokyo for a competition, the former Olympic gymnast Michaela Maroney told the Federal Bureau of Investigation she was afraid that she might not survive the abuse of Larry Nassar, the former sports medicine doctor and prolific child molester. "I thought I was going to die that night because there was no way he was going to let me go," Maroney repeated to a Senate hearing on Wednesday of this week. At the time she gave her interview to the FBI, Maroney was just a teenager. She hadn't yet told her own mother about the extent of Nassar's sexual abuse. But the agent she spoke to over the phone from the FBI's Indianapolis field office didn't seem particularly moved. "Is that all?" she recalls him asking. Ultimately, now that's where we can kind of pause. Because you call somebody, I've had things personally that have occurred and I'm wondering, who should I call? Should I call the FBI? Are these people too high up for me to, get somebody to at least take a look at what I'm saying? Are they too powerful for me to, quote unquote, rock their boat? All kinds of questions go over your mind when you feel that you are vulnerable. And trying to just talk about it amongst your friends, it's not going to get a reaction that you think you should get, and that will move things not only to the point where it's exposed, but dealt with. So let's move on. Ultimately, the FBI would barely investigate Maroney's accusations, according to a scathing report issued by the Department of Justice Inspector General this summer. Allegations against Nassar were largely discarded at first, and a meaningful inquiry was delayed for months. Of the three gymnasts who initially came forward to the FBI in 2015, Maroney was the only one who was interviewed. Her conversation with the FBI agent was not properly documented for 17 months. When it was, the agent who authored the report misrepresented what she had told him. The FBI did not refer the allegations to state and local authorities as it is required to do in such cases. And one of the agents assigned to the case, W.J. Abbott, seems to have been hoping to get a job with USA Gymnastics or the U.S. Olympic Committee. When internal investigators later asked Abbott about his job queries, he lied about them, according to the reports. So here again, we can pause. You have somebody with self-motivating interests that doesn't want their personal boat rocked. So therefore, to coin an expression, they swept matters under the rug. And here we have this young girl crying out for help to this person, and luck of the draw, he's the one that doesn't want anything coming out about what's going on. Moving on. The FBI ultimately did not pursue Nassar until the autumn of 2016, when local police found hard drives in his possession that contained more than 37,000 child abuse images. I don't even know what to say about that. Between when the women initially complained to the FBI and the time the FBI took action, Nassar sexually abused approximately 70 women and girls. So I would say ongoing and chronic. And even though there have been other cases come forward, Jerry Rimmer and so forth and so on, but this particular case kind of rocked everybody. Because you have young girls who are putting their trust in the Olympic Committee, in the United States in general, by definition, in the FBI as a agency to go to for protection from harm. So I don't want to digress. The FBI's handling of the Nassar case reflects a stunning failure of empathy by the agents, as well as a callous abandonment of duty amid the ongoing threat to public safety that Nassar posed. Gymnasts and Nassar victims, Simone Biles, Maggie Nichols, and Allie Reisman, along with Maroney, told the Senate on Wednesday that the agency's derelictions were both procedural and moral. In downplaying their experiences, delaying the investigation, and failing to collect evidence of Nassar's crimes, the FBI committed a second additional harm against Nassar's victims. Not only were they abused, but they were insulted and disregarded by those who supposedly were there to help them. Now, not too long ago, there was another revelation about University of Southern California. There were some allegations of abuse and sexual misconduct there. I think was settled to the tune of $1 billion. But the length of time between when the statements were given and investigated was much shorter than what went on with Larry Nassar. So let me proceed. As Maroney put it in her testimony, what is the point of reporting abuse if our own FBI agents are going to take it upon themselves to bury the report in a drawer? Though the FBI's failures are egregious, they are not unique. Sadly, the handling of the Nassar case is emblematic of broader systemic failures by law enforcement to properly investigate sexual violence and to treat that violence with the seriousness and rigorous inquiry that it deserves. Notice that systemic, Black Lives Matter, systemic racism. Now we have systemic failures. Continuing. Women across the country who have reported sexual violence say that police and prosecutors respond with disdain and disregard, and that sex crimes are investigated less thoroughly than other kinds of violence. And this kind of references, we all have a mother, probably some of us have a sister, some of us have daughters. So if you can't relate, then you probably are having issues of your own. Continuing. It is well documented that sexual violence reports lead to fewer arrests and fewer criminal convictions than other kinds of crimes. but less understood are the failures of police to even investigate sexual violence. A failure that victims say appears motivated by indifference to the specific form of harm that they suffered. Evidence is neglected or destroyed, witnesses are not interviewed, sexual violence incidents are misclassified as lesser crimes, and cases are summarily closed, often without any meaningful inquiry into what happened. And I guess personally, I don't need a blow-by-blow account, of what happened, although that probably is part of the police investigation or law enforcement investigation. But a legitimate complaint and a legitimate follow-up, should always not be the exception, but be the norm. I'm getting a lot of comments in here, but I'm going to continue. Here we go. Rape kits, the collections of DNA gathered from sexual violence victims in lengthy, invasive, and sometimes re-traumatizing medical exams often go untested, leading to a nationwide backlog of hundreds of thousands of unexamined evidence kits. Sometimes police departments and testing facilities destroy those kits before statutes of limitations have even run out, not only ignoring the evidence of the kits contained, but actively denying victims the opportunity to make a robust case in court. In other incidents, evidence is collected but ignored. That's what happened to Emily Bouchard, a University of Texas student who was kidnapped in a ride share. A fellow passenger choked her into unconsciousness. Then he and the driver took her to a motel and assaulted her. After she escaped, a man she identified as one of her attackers told police he had never met her. Later, his DNA was found in her rape kit, proving he had lied. But the police never arrested him. At still other times, police defer to the accounts of accused perpetrators over those of victims, even when there is little reason to believe that a woman is lying or that her alleged attacker is telling the truth. That's what happened to another University of Texas student whose screams for help were recorded during her rape. But when her attacker, a stranger, told police that the sex had been consensual, they dropped the case. The police's credulity towards alleged perpetrators seems to be part of what helped Nassar to evade justice and continue his attacks on women and girls. After all, it was not only the FBI who failed to properly investigate Nassar, it was also reported to local police at least twice, once in 2004 and once in 2014. In those incidents, Nassar claimed that his assaults of his victims were medically legitimate pelvic floor therapy and produced PowerPoint presentations he had made supporting this claim. Medical practitioners could have easily disabused police of this fraudulent explanation, but the local cops did not ask them. Pause for the cause. The systemic failures by law enforcement to investigate sexual abuse betray the unspoken belief that undergirds many of our cultural and institutional responses to these incidents. The idea that sexual violence is trivial, that the harm it causes the victims is beneath our notice. The feminist fight must be not only to convince institutions that sexual violence happens, but also that it matters. In the Senate hearing, the FBI Director Chris Wray praises the accusers' courage, but did not commit to taking the accountability they demanded. He insisted that the FBI's conduct in the case was not indicative of the character of the institution, but of the individual's mistakes. The evidence suggests otherwise. The FBI's handling of the Nassar case less like a mere mistake and more like an indication of the agency's priorities. We have a small favor to ask. Tens of millions have placed their trust in the Guardian's high-impact journalism since we started publishing 20 years ago, turning to us in moments of crisis, uncertainty, solidarity, and hope. More than 1.5 million readers from 180 countries have recently taken steps to support us financially. That's from the Guardian on a personal level to the people that use the Guardian to reference certain materials. So the FBI flubbed it. They hardly want to admit it, but there you have it. So Nasser, I believe, I'm pretty sure he's already serving time, but it's just horrific that these things are allowed to go on so long when you have teenage girls, who are trusting that they'll be watched out for while they go about their life dreams of being gymnasts or representing the United States in other manners that are considered to be giving back, honor or whatever to the country. And then the country, via the FBI, turns its back on them. So I'm not going to belabor the point. I'll leave you with the article. I put it under social justice because it's kind of reflected as being systemic. So sexual abuse, does deserve our attention. If somebody has a complaint, it should be investigated. It should not be taken casually. And hats off to these young ladies for coming forward. And then to find out that 70 other women have gone through the same thing while from the first report to when action was actually taken. So this is your Friday, starts the weekend. Give some time to yourself. As I say, don't forget your Tai Chi. Keep the balance. We have a few things going on around here. We're getting thunderstorms and various other things, reflection of the climate and what's going on from border to border inside the United States. Be careful, be safe. I'm Theodore Parker. This is a sideshow. That's it. Hashtag.